All right, I think we're live. So welcome to the Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great week here so far, and hope everyone's got some fun plans for the 4th of July if you plan on celebrating here in America. But so like all the other usual live streams here, we're going to go for 1 hour for these midweek ones, and I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. There's a link in the description if you'd like that as well. Let me see. I see we have a viewer, Jerry, Danny, Brian, Vishal, Nicholas, and we'll wait for some more people to come in. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late as well, but I see Jerry says, good evening, Matt, and happy early 4th, and appreciate that. And Jerry says, when will the $7,500 EV leasing credit disappear? It sounds like if the bill passes the way that it has in the Senate, that it is going to end 180 days after it's enacted. So basically end of the year. Sometime late December is when it is supposed to end. So you still have some time there as far as that goes, at least. Then after that, it's going to be completely gone, and it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out. That's my understanding of it. We'll see if things get changed. I don't think they will unless Elon's sway maybe changes things, but I'm not holding my breath. So I would say, definitely get your EV this year. We'll see what happens from that point on. But Danny says, hello, everyone. I did more driving alone on Monday. Hope everyone has a safe and happy 4th. Congrats on the driving. And Danny says his rare spots were a 2008 Ford Explorer Sport Track Limited V8. Eventually we'll find a car for myself. That's awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy the search. And car shopping can be fun, especially if you're looking for something quirky and out of the ordinary there. My fun spot I actually just saw tonight was a matte blue Audi R8. It was actually really nice. It was the V10 second generation. It was really cool looking. And Brian says good evening as well. Thanks for stopping by, Brian. And Vishal says good evening. My spots so far this week were a first-gen Civic Hybrid and a Suzuki Kizashi. Nice. That's funny. Nicholas, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal also says, I also saw a white or Nissan Z sales went up 108% in Q2 and 160% year over year. Dealers are finally moving them. That's great. I think it's long overdue, but hopefully they're finally dealing on them. Maybe there's some better incentives or something too. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to see Z's doing well. And I think Z is one of those things too where it's kind of going to win by default in a way. This is kind of the same thing with Frontier. Like if you want a V6, mid-sized truck, well, you have Frontier. That's literally all you have left. And so by default, it gets a bunch of fans that it just inherits from all the people that have, abandoned all the brands that have abandoned that. In the same way, Supra's going away here after the 2026 model year. And then what do you have if you want high horsepower two-door coupe? You have the muscle cars you always had, but it sounds like everything else on the horizon. Prelude's going to be, a front-wheel drive, lower horsepower thing. If there's a new Celica, I'm sure that's not going to be a rear-wheel drive-based thing. So it's, hopefully we'll see a new Supra someday. But in the meantime, Z is going to kind of be the only game in town, especially if you want something Japanese. And so maybe this is an early symptom of that. But, I think it's just going to get better for Z as long as they can stick it out. I think Z is just going to continue to improve with its sales. And they've kind of played that well in a way. And Nissan's kind of getting better and better at that just kind of being their charm. Same thing, old Armada was doing pretty good sales-wise because it was just like V8 and, Lexus abandoned the V8s there. And, it was one of those things where it's like, like our old stuff and our dated platforms actually is a perk. And I think as we see, a lot of buyers going backwards and wanting stuff that's old school and rejecting all the modern advancements, I think that you're going to see a lot of people say, hey, there was nothing wrong with the 370Z interior. I don't care that half of it's carried over for the new Z. And that's going to be totally fine, So I think you're going to see a lot of that. And Vishal says thoughts also on SRT coming back. That's pretty exciting. We'll see how it plays out. And, again, I'm very conflicted about my thoughts on Dodge and Stellantis in general right now. I am hesitant to get my hopes up because one, I think that it's going to be short-lived because again, they're just going to capitalize on the free for all for the next 4 years. And two, I don't think it's the right direction for them, like I talked about in Sunday's live stream as well. And so, I'm excited for SRT to come back, but if it's all just going to be a bunch of gas guzzlers, it's a dead end road. It's just a dead end road, and so it's fun to race down, but then you're going to come to a brick wall eventually. And so, if this is just the band getting back together, which is how Tim Kuniskis actually put it, it's the band getting back together. They do one more farewell tour. Everyone who by some miracle didn't buy one of the final editions or one of the zillions of last calls and all these other things that they did, if you still are on the sidelines or something, you have this. I mean, we'll have to see, exactly what SRT has planned. I think the first thing you can expect from SRT is going to be, a sport truck version. I think Ram SRT will probably be the top first thing as we see, Ram getting back into the NASCAR, Cup Series stuff and the racing stuff. I think that the natural thing is to make, a street truck to go along and have alongside that race truck kind of thing. So, that would be my expectation for the first thing. And I think that certainly fits again with the Rams, yeehaw, we're bringing the V8 back thing. I think, that's going to be the first thing. I think though, there have been a lot of rumors about Charger either getting a new V8 or finding a creative way to stuff the V8 in since it previously didn't fit. So maybe, that's what SRT is going to, be for there as well, is maybe SRT will denote V8s or something like that. I don't know how it's going to play out, but that's, it's exciting to see SRT. I didn't really ever think SRT was completely disbanded, honestly, because I believe they still call the Durango Hellcat the SRT Hellcat. So, it's not like SRT ever left in my mind. Maybe it actually did. I don't know. But, but it's good to see it coming back to the other brands and all that. And we'll see, just how crazy they get. If this were, again, 2015 or something, and we had a long runway, great. I'm just still very conflicted, as you can obviously tell. I'm curious what you guys think about SRT coming back, though. And Jack, thanks for stopping by. And Wheatman, thanks as well. And Linda. And Blacked Out Fan says, hi, Matt. I just saw your article on the cars available with a handbrake. May I suggest for you to do one with cars that still have a twisting key, please? Thank you. I will pitch that to the Carbuzz editors and see if that's something that it depends on how well this article probably does. But that could be a fun one as well. It's a good idea. Thanks for offering that up, and I'll see what I can do. And that because there's got to be very few vehicles that actually offer that anymore. So that could be a fun one to do for sure. I appreciate that. And Shrik Thanth, I apologize, I butchered your name. He says, when is the refresh Pilot expected? Will it get the bigger screen from the Passport? So like all Honda questions, this one has a logical answer that makes sense to you and I and basically everybody else. And then there's the answer that Honda sometimes provides where it's completely nonsensical. So yes, logic would dictate that we will see, Pilot probably end up getting, I don't know if they've announced 2026 Pilot yet. That might be a little too soon because Honda sometimes moves slowly. Maybe we say 2027, could be when you see that for Pilot. I believe Pilot, did that debut, was that I think it was 2023 model year, if I remember correctly. So you give it 3 years, 2026, 2027, something like that. So it should be sometime here. If it's not 2026 model year, it should be 2027 model year. But they also, again, Honda is very content to not change things. Case in point, the refresh CRV that has a trail sport trim and basically nothing else. Like my brain would say, okay, refresh for CRV. It's our top selling thing. We don't want to fall behind the ball here. Let's give it the screen from the Accord, the 10-inch screen or from Passport, whatever, put that big screen in there. Let's make sure we finally give it ventilated seats. Let's make sure we finally give it a panoramic roof and make it competitive. But they have no interest in doing any of that. So that's why I say it's hard to use logic sometimes with that, even when we're talking about stuff that's literally on the parts shelf that they could just put right in there. Like, we're not talking about, any kind of new developments. I guess the panoramic roof would take a little bit of creativity and engineering, but like the screen is an easy lift. Like, so the fact we don't have that, and again, that's been an Accord. That 10-inch screen is in Accord since, Accord debuted. So when was that? 2 or 3 years ago now. So that's why it's hard to say, because Honda doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense with the way they do things, in my opinion, outside looking in here. But I would assume if they have interest in it, it'll be next year. If not, then maybe they'll pull the same thing as CRV and introduce a new color and a new wheel design and call it a day for the next 3 or 4 years. That's entirely possible as well. So we'll just have to see. And sorry, I don't have a better answer for you there. And Kyle, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate it. Happy to see you in here, Kyle, as well. He says, Matt, do you think there will be a next generation Mazda 3? And if so, when do you think? I hope they keep the turbo engine. I think the turbo engine is a pretty safe bet, mostly because Mazda considers the turbo engine to be part of their strategy to position themselves as an upmarket brand. You can't really call yourself a premium upmarket brand if your car's not even breaking 200 horsepower typically. And I think even if that's not a hard and fast rule, it's just one that I think Mazda, it seems like once they started this push, that was the whole reason why the Mazda 3 got the turbo engine in the first place. It wasn't because they were trying to do a Mazda Speed 3, sadly. It was because, well, this is a higher version that's now competing with Audi A3 and Mercedes CLA and all this other stuff. That was the intent there. So I think there will be a Mazda 3 for the next generation. It's almost certain, just because it is still a good seller for them. I mean, it's dropped off a lot, but it's been around since 2019. So it's understandable that it's not a hot seller these days. And I think it is due for a new generation soon. So if we look at, we just saw the teaser for CX-5. And that CX-5, though, had been around since, I think that was 2016. 2017, something like that. It's been a while. And even look at like more recent product launches. Like we still have like CX-30, I think came out the year after Mazda 3. And there's no signs of any new CX-30 yet, but I would assume after CX-5, if you look at everything else in the pipeline, Miata's fine for a little while, I think. Really the next thing up is Mazda 3 in my mind. So I have to assume if it's not this year, it's next year. I haven't seen any spy shots or anything, but I don't say super on top of that, so I might just be out of the loop. I would guess next year, but we'll have to see. And I think they will keep the turbo, though, for sure. And it'll probably be a little bit bigger. I think that's, going to be just something that they can't avoid. They can't keep it the same size. So hopefully that's something that they do improve, but I think it should be pretty soon. And thank you so much, Kyle, and definitely stay tuned. I think, once you, see, because they, again, just tease CX-5, hopefully, that will give us some hints maybe about what we can expect from next generation Mazda 3. So, stay tuned for that here. And Lancewoff, also, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity and happy to see a bunch more people able to get those memberships, including some new faces there. And thanks so much for your supporting of the memberships, Lancewoff. I think the amount of members here is almost at an all-time high, thanks to all of your memberships. So I really appreciate that. It really means a lot. Let me see here, getting back to other questions. So Mystical Gamer says, hey, Matt, what's up? Also, not sure if you've seen the message I sent you earlier, but the dealership my sister works at on the showroom floor is a 2025 Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat. Nice. Yeah, that's the one that has survived. It's remained, as far as SRT and as far as Hellcats. We'll see what others potentially join here in the future. And Jesus says, thoughts on the new Audi interiors. Do you think they get too much hate? I do. I actually kind of talked about this in my Q5 and A5 reviews that I just did. There's so many people that, really didn't like it for whatever reason. I mean, I think it's fine. It feels just as nice as any other Audi interior as far as the plastics and, the materials that they've used and everything. And the screen is mostly fine too. I mean, again, the SQ6 e-tron that I had, the radio went out a couple of times where like it just didn't play audio, but the screen was still working. just a little bit buggy and glitchy. I think that's stuff that software will fix. It's just the early cars that are going to have that. So you might have a little bit of a teething process there with some of those early ones. But other than that, I mean, the interior is totally fine. I mean, there's nice improvements in space. The lift back practicality in the A5 and the S5 is fantastic. And yeah, I mean, I don't see the complaints personally. I think it's very Audi. And like the screens, like not only are they just, a plentiful amount of screens and all that, but they're OLED screens. And that is a differentiator. Most others in the auto industry don't actually use OLED. And I mean, you notice it, especially at night, because it's not as blinding. It's so much crisper, and those blacks are true blacks, and that's really nice at night. It really cuts down on your glare and stuff, and that's something that, again, very few others actually do. And so, I mean, I think Audi's doing great. I actually really like the new stuff. Again, my biggest gripe was the fact that on the inside is that you have a little block off plate for the lock and unlock buttons. That's just lazy. I actually gave the one Audi executives a hard time about it when I was on the Q5 event. I was like, why is this here? And he couldn't actually give me a good answer, but he was like, I think it's just probably something that was a little bit of a struggle to remove, because I think it was I think he said it's kind of a later implementation. I think that little touch panel on the door was kind of a more last minute kind of thing. But I still like, there's no reason you can't have that plastic piece be one piece. I can't buy any legitimate excuse for that. And that's just, a block off thing and something that's, $70,000-$80,000. That's just unacceptable. So I think there's certainly some room for improvement. But I think it's great. Again, just that. And then, the laggy throttle response is the only other complaint that I have. Otherwise, they're great vehicles and actually really well priced, which German vehicles usually you can't say that. And this is actually a proper value play. And at least among the other German brands and European brands. So I think they did a really good job with the new ones. And Truck and Car Guy, thanks for stopping by. And Danny says the cars I've been looking are a GMW body platform. The 3800 cars seem to be decently priced around me. 3,500 for one with about 110,000 miles on it. Nice. That'd be fun. And you have something that's a known quantity, very easy to get parts for, from junkyards and all that. And yeah, I think that'd be really fun. And best of luck again with the hunt. And Sheree also says, are you going to drive the new Palisade anytime soon? Looking forward to your review. I appreciate that. Palisade, the media drive is coming up relatively soon. I unfortunately had to turn it down. I'm really being picky about the trips that I go on, and Hyundai videos just don't do well for me unless they're ends. Even the Palisades, they're mediocre at best, but I'm not flying across the country for a mediocre view count. And that's just, at the end of the day, this is a business, and I just can't afford to lose 3 days out of my schedule for something that's going to get 5,000 views. I can't do it. So, oftentimes press cars do just as well. So there's going to be a little bit more of a wait for my take on it. All of my wonderful colleagues that do fantastic videos will have their stuff, sometime. I'm not sure if I'm at liberty of saying exactly when the drive is, but it's going to be happening fairly soon. It'll be this summer, I can say. But, so hopefully they're usually pretty quick with turnaround for press cars. So I'm hoping, maybe even late summer. I guess at this point I'm scheduled out to press cars till like the end of August. So probably will be sometime early fall for my review of it. I'm excited for it. I think Palisade's one of the best in the segment. I was really impressed with it whenever I did a tour video of it at the New York Auto Show when it first debuted. So if you want to hear my thoughts on, everything else on the Palisade, definitely check out my auto show video on it. But I'm excited for it. It's going to be fantastic. Probably will still be one of the best ones in a segment. Just unfortunately, people just don't show up for Hyundai videos on my channel, and that's okay. But, I'm learning to not try and, swim against the current and just go with the current instead. So that's the choice there. But I'm very excited. One drive I will go on if I get invited to is Ioniq 6N, because they just teased that here again tonight. It sounds really good, like even better than Ioniq 5N sounds. So that's exciting. And so that'll be definitely one I'll go for, because that'll actually get views if I go out and drive that. So we'll see. I'm assuming that'll launch at some point later this year, but I don't know. Let me see. Two Track Jack's asking if they're going to do an SRT Hornet. I guess they could. I'm trying to think of how you go beyond, the RT version. You got the plug-in hybrid thing. There's probably not a whole lot of bandwidth to make that any crazier. The motor, of course, you could just bump power, but I mean, yeah, that's I'm trying to think of what other parts bin motors they can throw into that actually fit. I mean, and also if Alpha is not doing it, I doubt, that Dodge is going to get it first because Alpha's already pissed off about the fact that Dodge was allowed to take their beautiful Tonale and, Americanize it. So I don't think SRT Hornet. Also, Hornet has been a horrible seller, which is kind of strange because it's actually, again, is a little pricey. They just go crazy with the options at all the Stellantis brands, and that's really what bites them in the butt most of the time. But if they lower and adjust the price on Hornet a little bit, and I think it had a lot of potential. Unfortunately, the ones that I had were just buggy a little bit, but I thought it was going to do better than it did, honestly. But I guess it's just, again, that pricing just kind of made it rough. But we'll see what other stuff they end up doing. I'm curious if you guys have any other thoughts for other future SRT products. Michelle's also saying, if you're able to do the turnkey ignition article, I have one on the list for you already. Jetta, the 2 lower trims are still turnkey ignitions. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Saves me a little bit of legwork there because that's part of the time-consuming part of these articles is the research, which I'm used to doing with the weekly updates, in the past. But some of these I really got to dig and do a lot of research because if I'm just spouting off random stuff on YouTube, it's not quite as big of a deal. But CarBuzz, it's like everything has to be fact checked and 100%, double verified, and completely understandably so. I wouldn't want it any other way, but it's just sometimes in my videos I'm able to be like, I'm pretty sure this has that, or I can Google something really quick and get an answer without having to do 3 other sources to make sure that that's actually true. But thankfully I don't think I've ever said anything that's been actually wrong as far as weekly update stuff goes. I've always been very adamant about making sure my reporting is totally factual, but it's just a lot more research whenever you're talking about an actual article where you have to cite your sources and all that. And let me see here. So Bush Cream says, Matt, I want to buy your car. I'm not sure which car you're talking about. Yeah, we're really not, unless you want to, we're going to be getting rid of the Mach-E here. If you want the Mach-E, let me know. Send me a message or an email. I'll let you know the payoff. And because right now it's basically payoff is where we need to be at. And that's pretty much around Blue Book value. But otherwise, Fiat's not for sale. I'm locked into that lease and I don't want to get rid of it anyway. And the Bullet has been gone for a year. If you're just joining late here and a little out of the loop, Bullet is unfortunately, happily living a happier life in Utah, and but unfortunately isn't with me anymore. And let me see here. Wheatman says, did anyone see the Audi A6 S6 EV sedan debut? Same platform as Q6 SQ6. Yeah, the A6 e-tron. Yeah, well, I mean, so I covered that in a weekly update. I don't know, I think it was actually last year that debuted. But yeah, there was just the first drives and tours of that, which I was able to get on last minute. I was able to get into it. It just didn't work out scheduling wise. But I'm hoping Audi's really excited to keep working with me after, those are my first drives there with the A5 and Q5. So I'm hoping to do, some other cool programs with Audi in the future there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be great. Should be basically the same drive experience as Q6 and SQ6, just sedan form. I'm not expecting any surprises. It's the same interior. It's just, again, copy and pasting everything, putting it into a different package, and there's not a whole lot of surprises there. So if you're curious how I feel about how that probably drives, I think my SQ6 e-tron review will probably give you 75% of the driving. Obviously handling will be a little different, but other than that, I think most of the other stuff you can also copy and paste over as far as my impressions there. Kevin, thanks for stopping by. And Wheatman says Mazda also teased the CX-5, which looks interesting. I won't say any more about CX-5 because I am under embargo for that one. So I can talk about the teaser, but beyond the teaser, I can't share anything because unfortunately well, I guess fortunately for me, I do know more. I will be having a video covering it. I haven't seen it in person, but I got advanced info on that. So stay tuned for a video from me whenever that debuts of all the details and some of the manufacturer imagery and all that. So yeah, gotta stay mum on that. My lips are sealed. But Mike says, have you ever done a review on the Hyundai Kona? Yes, I've done a few. I did the last gen Kona. I did the new gen Kona. I spent a week with the Kona. I did the Kona N for the last gen as well. So I think 4 total videos on Kona. So yeah, I was on the launch for the new one, spent a week with it after that. And then, yeah, so I think that, 4 videos on the Kona. Definitely check them out on the channel. If you're curious, just search my name and Kona and it should come up. And Taste Bud 420 says, haven't been on one of these in way too long. After having my last Infinity taken suddenly from me, I just got myself a 370Z and I'm loving life again. Cheers, car peeps. That's awesome. Well, congrats on the 370. Sorry to hear about the Infinity being taken away from you there. But yeah, welcome back to the lives. Hope you enjoy it and hope you enjoy that 370Z. Perfect timing for that. I mean, because you got beautiful weather here, hopefully wherever you are, and able to enjoy the summer in a sports car. It's always a good time. And Lancelot says, my cool spots today were a white Lexus RZ, a black GTR, nice, a gray R8, nice. You also saw an R8, that's cool, and an atomic orange C6 Z06. I love that color. And Z06. I always love they continue to offer orange. Like every generation, you can get it in orange. It seems, and it's always fun. And Lancelot says, "Did you hear the news about Tim Kuniskis being placed as the CEO of the newly revived SRT?" Yes, we just talked about SRT a minute ago, but yeah, as far as Tim Kuniskis, being the kind of the head of it, and he's also, they announced he's the head of basically all of Stellantis North America now, and just basically reports to the Stellantis CEO. Everyone else, all the other CEOs are still in their jobs. It's just that he's kind of overseeing everything for North America. And I think that does fit, with a few exceptions like Fiat or something, where I think he might be a little bit out of his element to weigh in there. But, I think he obviously has a very good read on the American market and knows what whenever you give him free reign, I think he does make a lot of the right calls. And we'll just have to see. Again, I'm just very conflicted about the direction of Stellantis right now. But let me see. Danny says, another weird fact about the 90s sedans is that the 1991 Dodge Spirit RT was the fastest production sedan of 1991. That's crazy. It was beat out by the 998 GS 400 finally. This is from being on Google a lot. So I guess 91 must have been a low competition kind of year, because surely there must have been other production sedans, like BMW must have had something faster. Even like Mercedes, maybe not Audi, but yeah, that's maybe American sedans possibly. I don't know, but you're saying GS, so that's obviously not American. So interesting. Yeah, I have to look into that, but that's because it didn't have that much power, right? I've struggled to believe that. I mean, I don't doubt you, but I have to do some research to figure that out for myself, because it must have just been an odd year for those things. Because I mean, there was all kinds of fast sedans in the 90s that are definitely maybe top speed wise, but even that, there's no way. Because I mean, you even had the 90s, you had the E39 M3 and the E36, for the 3 Series and stuff. Yeah, there's got to be something faster. I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but yeah, that's nuts. I've never driven any of those Spirits or any of those K cars. It'd be fun to try one of them out someday. And Michelle says, saw spy shots of next gen Telluride, seems to have a more chiseled look. Yeah, I'm guessing they're going to probably borrow a lot from EV9, would be my guess. And I'm guessing we'll see it fairly soon, since, again, Palisade just debuted, and, that's, coming here soon. So, I would say Telluride, my guess would be LA Auto Show probably in November for that. But, it could be obviously any other time. They don't stick to car show schedules anymore like they used to. But John says, moment of silence for the Kona N. Yeah, it's so sad they didn't bring it back for this new version. It again would have been a copy and paste kind of thing. Obviously, the other powertrains fit in the Kona just fine. I'm sure that one does too. And they just chose not to go for it. They even have the styling half done with the N line. So it's like you don't need to do a whole lot more there. But I don't know why. And Zachary's asking, is there any one brand that performs best on your channel? I don't know. I'd say Honda's probably up there. Subaru also often performs really well. I mean, that one, I guess, kind of, is a no-brainer. But even these days, with all the Subaru hating I usually do, a lot of people still show up for my Subaru reviews. So that's, but I'm trying to think of other ones. I mean, Dodge, I always get views on, especially Dodge muscle cars. Mustangs are always a guarantee, hit as far as views goes. But it's usually more dependent on the type of car, where, sporty stuff typically is the stuff that always does best. There are outliers though, and that's why I don't stick to only sporty stuff, because I do have surprise, home runs that happen from time to time, and also vehicles that maybe they don't get a ton of views, but the ad rates are super fantastic for them. And even with lower views, they just are some real nice breadwinners for me. So it very much depends. But I'd say typically, American Muscle, JDM sports cars, those two are my mainstays that you can never go wrong with. Everything else is a little bit of a gamble. But anything performance is usually going to be my top priority, because I know that's what most of you are here for and care about. And also because, with the algorithm, it's more likely to do well, just because you're going to get a jump from the subscribers, versus when I'm posting a video that is meant to be an evergreen video just for car shoppers. Car shoppers, they don't care about me. They need the information, and then they're gone. And then I see them again in 5 years or whatever. They need the next car. So like, with stuff that I know appeals to subscribers, that gets the jump early, and then car shoppers maybe come in later, but you get a little bit less of that. So it's kind of front loading the views on those versus some of the others where you have more of a longer tail on the the viewership for those other ones. So it's all a balance, and having a little bit of both is really nice, because again, it gives you the jump in the beginning, and you also get some stuff kind of to sustain you for the long haul too. So but yeah, that's kind of the but yeah, there's so many surprises. Like the Cadillac EVs have actually surprisingly gotten really good amounts of views, and also really good ad rates. And I didn't think anyone would watch my Cadillac Lyric review, and that's actually been a really nice performer. Cadillac Optic, that's performed better than GR Corolla so far. So and also, if you hear, there's some random fireworks going off, so everyone's getting an early jump on the on the 4th year of the celebrations. But yeah, so that's probably the main ones there. And where she says, if Maserati was sold, who would you want it to sell to? Honestly, I mean, even if they just kind of were partnered up with Ferrari and they did a closer tie and just made like cheaper Ferraris with Maserati, I think that could be a really good combo. Otherwise, if we're talking about selling it to another large conglomerate, it's just these days there's no brand that I can think of that has the money to just drop on something like that, or the need necessarily. And also because it's such an Italian brand, it's hard for another brand to scoop it up and it be like convincing, I think. So I think it's kind of a catch-22 with Maserati. I really think they are in the best home, and it's just a matter of giving them the money to thrive. But I mean, the only other solution would be to sell them to, I mean, who else is Italian and not in the Stellantis empire? I'm blanking on any others, but there's not a whole lot. I mean, I guess you could maybe sell them to Lamborghini. That's the only other thing I can think of, is if Audi wanted to absorb them, but Audi's got enough on their plate already. And I don't think, I think Porsche fills the Maserati gap, between, Audi and Lamborghini. So but I think, yeah, Audi Group with Lamborghini would be the only ones that would actually be able to do a convincing job of owning Maserati to stick to the heritage and all that. I guess Pagani could if they wanted to get into volume sales or something. That's the only other thing I can think of. It's a good question, though. Thanks for asking, Rashid. And Jordan, sorry I missed your member question here a little bit ago, but thanks so much for being a member for 21 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, hey, Matt, has Toyota ever offered a flight out to Japan to attend a reveal? Also, do car companies gain or lose money when it comes to repossessions? Great questions. Toyota has never offered to bring me out to Japan. I would drop everything to go to Japan. Like, I don't care what car it is. I don't care. I don't even care. They could fly me to Japan to show me their new robot toilet, and I would go to Japan for it. I so desperately want to go to Japan, like I don't even care. So I would love that someday. Whenever we were at the Toyota HQ event back in May, there was, like, they were saying how Lexus is going to have a big announcement at the Japan mobility show, or whatever they call the auto show there for Tokyo this fall. That Lexus will have some kind of announcement. I would love to think that maybe I would be one of the ones invited for that Lexus event, but I'm not in the A list of Lexus invitees. Because if I don't know how many other YouTubers you guys follow that do car reviews, but they just had a Lexus RZ event in Portugal, and I didn't get invited to that either. I would totally have gone to Portugal to drive the RZ. I mean, RZ, there's not a whole lot different there. It's no big surprises, but that would totally be one that I would have just been like, I want to go to Portugal because I've never been, and that would have been fun. So based on that, I'm guessing they're going to use probably that same guest list for any Japan thing if they do in fact do something like that. So I'm not holding my breath, but someday I hope to make it to Japan. Japan is always, basically since I was a kid playing Gran Turismo 2, like Japan was like my number one destination I've always wanted to go to more than any other place in the world. I so much relate to the people, the kindness and the modesty that they have from a personality standpoint, and just I don't know. I love the culture. I love the cars, and just everything Japanese, pretty much. So, yeah. Anyway, also you say, do car companies gain or lose money when it comes to repossessions? I mean, I think it's kind of just more of a stopping the bleeding kind of thing for them whenever they repossess, and that's kind of not even the car company per se. That's their financial arms that are doing that, which certainly has an impact on overall conglomerate profits. But the car company is pretty much all they are doing is selling new cars and selling parts for those new cars, as far as for servicing matters. But like, that's really the only things that the car company is directly making money off of, and of course the related services and subscriptions and stuff. But like, that's really the meat and potatoes of it. Everything else, again, is either the financial arm, or it's going to be obviously on the dealer level. So repossessions, I think that's kind of beyond the scope of average car company profits and stuff, because like they made their money whenever they sold the car. They make their money whenever they service have the parts they sell to the dealer. But that's really where it ends for them. So I think repossessions is a whole other thing. Obviously, if you have a brand that has a ton of repossessions, then your financial arm is going to be hurting for sure. And that could, I guess, in a roundabout way, hurt the company eventually if they have to cut back on incentives or other things in that financial arm of the company. But I think for most of them, it's just a matter of trying to salvage whatever you can out of the asset, even if you are losing money. I think though with cars, when you repossess them, I mean, sure, you kind of have a car that again has that mark on the Carfax and stuff, but unless it's completely trash, which I mean, many are, but I mean, usually they're not beyond the point of saving. So, repossessed car, you can refinish it, send it off to auction, and it's you're not losing out on that much aside from the few missed payments that person missed out on. But otherwise, I mean, it's the same as if they would have just traded the car in. Honestly, I think from a financial arm kind of standpoint, I could be wrong. I don't know enough about that whole process, but just from what I do know, I think that's kind of how it shakes out. But yeah, I'd be curious if anyone has any better inputs on that. I'd love to hear. And Lance Watt says, I had a 94 Dodge Spirit with the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It was okay, but man, was it slow. Yeah, that's, I think, the case for most of the Spirits. And Eric says the Spirit RT had 224 horsepower and a 0 to 60 in the low 5s. Interesting. So, I mean, I guess, was that really all that they could muster? Even all the high-end stuff back then, nothing was lower than low 5s? I mean, I guess I can believe that. That's crazy. Pretty wild stuff. And William says, are still torn between Lexus IS 350 versus Acura Integra Type S. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, one is much more aggressive than the other. It just comes down to, again, are you after rear-wheel drive based dynamics or front-wheel drive ones? If you want my opinion, which you didn't ask for, so I won't go on a rant about it, but if you want my opinion, Integra Type S is definitely the way to go. It's phenomenal. It's also more practical and more roomy than the IS, even just from like the boring kind of stuff. But as far as performance stuff goes, I mean, Integra Type S is phenomenal. IS 350 is a good car, but it doesn't light your hair on fire like Integra Type S does, at least in my opinion. Definitely try and test drive both if you can. Even used versions of both, I think, would be a helpful test drive. But man, Integra Type S is magical. I would totally daily one of those if I had the money and the need for a practical 4-door car. And best of luck, though, with deciding. Let me know if you have any other follow-up questions or anything I can do to help from an advice standpoint. And Mike says, I love my 24 Durango Hellcat Premium. I traded my 21 TRX for it. I get a whole 4 to 5 MPG more. Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, you still get that beautiful Hellcat sound and all the hilarity that brings with it. And that's awesome. I hope you enjoy to the fullest. And Danny says, Brabus and Alpina were for 1994 and 1996, but I'm talking American made. Gotcha. So the Spirit RT would beat out the GS400. Gotcha. Okay. I can believe that as far as American made for sure. That's awesome. And let me see. Darnell says, in the late 90s, that Dodge Avenger was killer. Shame they didn't have a GSX type drivetrain. Yeah, Avenger never lived up to the potential that thing had. That thing was so cool looking. And yeah, I love those Avengers. They're on the right track with all these cool concept cars that actually half of them made it to production. And yeah, they should have totally done a better powertrain on that, though. Danny says, here's another weird thing. Chevy offered different cars with the Z trim in the 90s. There was the Cavalier, Z24, Beretta Z26, Carrera Z28, Lumina Z34. That was all in 1992. Yeah, they did have a fully fledged out Z kind of lineup, and I'm surprised they haven't tapped into that more, honestly, especially the way Chevy has no reverence for branding, as evidenced by Blazer and all that. But I feel like, yeah, that would actually be appealing instead of just RS. I mean, maybe they don't think that it warrants the Z badges without any big performance boosts. And I mean, I guess there's not a whole lot there to really put sportier stuff on. So I mean, I guess RS is fine, but there's so many fun options back then. I mean, it's just there's not really any sedans. I mean, there's just the Corvette now and a bunch of SUVs, really. So it's a shame. It would have been fun if they spiced up Malibu and even just did a new Malibu SS before the end here, but unfortunately Malibu is just riding off into the sunset without much fanfare. But yeah, so many cool things back then. And Rishi said, I think Saudis could potentially help Maserati. Yeah, I guess if you still keep everything based in Italy and then just give it a bunch of money from same thing like Lucid did, same kind of deal, that could certainly help too, and have someone else to kind of direct everything. I mean, the other thing I guess you could say is if Maserati didn't care about the Italian thing, it would be a prime candidate for a Chinese brand, because you would certainly have wild performance, you could have wild styling, and could be a really great way. You have enough dealers to at least get your foot in the door if you're a Chinese brand looking to do more of a premium thing. You could do that, but I don't even think Maserati would sell in most of those cases and most of those offers. I think they're pretty pretty stubborn until they are actually in like bankruptcy or something. I don't think they're going to, be doing any kind of deals. And Darnell says, as a millennial car guy, all I like from Maserati is MC12. Yeah, I mean, Gran Turismo sounded glorious, and I loved the V8 Gran Turismos. I haven't had a chance to try the new ones. I've asked for them in the press fleet. I've never actually had a Maserati in the press fleet, but they do have them from time to time. So that would be one I'm hoping to try out at some point to see. But I mean, they make some sweet stuff. It's just that it's so expensive, and it's just like, if you're gonna spend, those kinds of dollars, there's a lot of really good options. That's just the problem. And whether you're talking about the sports cars or the SUVs or the sedans, it's just tough. Yeah, that's what's to sell it back to Ferrari. Yeah, and I think that would be the best way is if they. I mean, I even think Alpha. I think you bring all those under Ferrari's umbrella and you let them kind of run the show a little bit more. I think, Ferrari has clearly proven they know how to make things that are desirable, and maybe that would spread them too thin. But, I think the Maserati could be something nicer because we just saw the new Ferrari Amalfi, this week, which why not just still call it the Roma? It's the same car. It's just, I mean, there's obviously they say every body panel is different and all that, but like, it's the same car underneath. And so like, I don't know why they didn't use a whole new name for that, but that shows they have a desire still for stuff that is cheaper. I don't know, they're probably 300 grand still, but I agree. I think selling it back to Ferrari would probably be the best bet. And you have, again, the familiarity and everyone kind of already been in the system and same kind of, conglomerate still in a way. So I think that could make a lot of sense. And yeah, same thing for Alpha. Because like the hilarious thing was whenever I was in Maranello last year at the Ferrari factory, every single employee drove an Alfa Romeo. They were all mostly in Giulia's or Stelvio's. But there was a few people, even some of the smaller ones, in Tonales even. But like everyone actually, so it's like, everyone who works at Ferrari who can't afford a Ferrari drives Alphas. So it would make sense to be like, hey, look, clearly we all like this brand. We're all, inspired by all this stuff. Like, why not just work together a little bit closer and just bring them under the umbrella here, So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that'd be the move for sure. And General Chicken, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, are there any JDM cars that you would want to import in the future if possible? I have my eye on the 2010 to 2014 JDM spec WRXs with the EJ207. That would be cool. I mean, for me, I think it's all just the stuff that's already available to import. That's, the 90s classics that I would love, whether we're talking about, just a right-hand drive GC8 version of the, just basically the WRX before the generation before the WRX came to the States. That'd be really cool. That's kind of one of the ultimate ones because, my first car was a 97 Subaru Impreza. And so if I could have all the WRX awesomeness in what feels like my old car in a way, I think that would probably be the prime candidate for me as far as JDM car to import. Otherwise, there's a lot of really fun little K-car convertibles, like the Daihatsu Copen could be a really fun one, just as a fun little convertible runabout. Just have something different than a Miata. Even the there's the other, all those K Roadster things. There's a little Honda one that they have over there. There's a little Toyota one. I think just rebadged Daihatsu, but there's a bunch of those little things. That's kind of my jam if I was going to bring over something more modern, or if I ever had the privilege of living in Japan and also not needing a backseat. I'd probably have one of those little things. But yeah, I think those are probably the top ones. I mean, and this is where I honestly, I even have to refresh my memory because there's just so many good things, whether we're talking about the mid-engine Previa vans or there's just so many wild things, especially from the 90s, that just it's just such a prime time and just cool cars in my mind, at least. Again, maybe I just got brainwashed by Gran Turismo 2 as a kid and and that's it. But for me, there's so many sweet things from that generation that I would love to have. Yeah, I think just all the JDM cars that are out there are pretty great for the most part. And but yeah, great question. And I'm curious if there's any others that you would pick. Obviously, R34 GTR is now, I believe, fair game. So that would be another top one that I'd love to, if I had tons of money someday. I'd love an R34 GTR. That's always been kind of one of the ultimate unicorns. And so getting one of those would be, wild. I still just like freak out even seeing one, let alone, getting to ever, ride in one, drive one, own one. That'd be amazing. And thank you again for the super chat. And Vishal says, definitely would love to visit Japan someday. I'd be just as ready as you are to go. All right. Well, yeah, we could all do a group tour to Japan someday, maybe. And Daniel says, RS3, C43, M240. Which one do you like more? I've not driven M240 if you're talking about the new generation, so I can't weigh in on that. Also, actually haven't driven the new C43. I drove GLC 43, so I can kind of interpret, how that would feel for the C43, I think pretty, accurately. And RS3 is magical, and that would be the one I would pick. It's just, the 5-cylinder, the skinnier tires in the back than the front to make it more oversteery. Just the insanity of that car, the collectible nature of the 5-cylinder, especially these days. I guess, again, maybe we have a few more years here. But I think it's going to go down in history as being a truly, truly memorable standout in the segment and in automotive history, I think. And I don't think you can say the same for C43. I don't think you can even say the same for M240. So personally, RS3 all day, every day, easy choice for me. Check out my RS3 video if you want to hear more. There's no shortage of of me discussing how much I love that car. So check that out if you want to hear all the details on RS3 and exactly why I love it and all the reasons for that love. And best of luck deciding though for yourself. And Michelle says, Maseratis aren't the best cars out there, but man, they do sound nice. Yeah, and I don't think I've even heard the new Gran Turismo in person to see how that, twin turbo V6 sounds. It's crazy because we actually have a Maserati dealer pretty close, like 15 minutes from my house, and I have still not seen a single new Gran Turismo, which I guess really shows how bad the brand's doing. Because I mean, like this, I see more Bentleys than I see Maseratis. And it's just like, it's kind of, I could probably say maybe it's a tie with Lamborghini, but I probably see almost as many Lamborghinis as I do Maseratis around here too. It's crazy how rare they are in a place that has a dealership 15 minutes away. So, man, I hope they do better in the future, but I'm not optimistic. And Danny says, I'm still surprised Chevy is keeping the Malibu alive. The Malibu 2.0T was a good car with that power. Well, it is staying alive, but I believe it's been confirmed to go away after the 2025 model year. I think they're building them until, like end of December here. And then I think, as the year changes over, they're turning the lights off on Malibu. So it is going away. That and Legacy. Legacy, I believe I think they're stopping building Legacy, I think this month or next month. And then that's done too. So losing 2 of the, I think, 6 sedans in that segment now. So it's down to just really the last 4, with Camry, Accord, K5, and Sonata. And then, I guess you can say Toyota Crown in a way as well. But, that's it. It's crazy how, that's still a segment, pardon the rant for a minute, but that's still a segment that every single one of those cars sells over 100,000 units a year, I believe. And I mean, like Camry's over 200,000 units, Accord's over 200,000 units, I believe. Sonata's, I think, in the high 100s. And I think even K5 is over 100,000. I could be wrong, but like, we are not talking about small numbers here. Like, there is a clear case that people still want mid-sized sedans. And I don't know why everyone's just happy to give up on it. Again, those 4 brands are laughing all the way to the bank and lighting their cigars with $100 bills. But like, you would think that there would be someone wanting to stay in that segment because it sells. It's not like it's, oh, no one wants these anymore. Like people do. And anyway, yeah, it's a mystery to me. And Jordan says, will Honda gather sales statistics on the Prelude before giving an update on their Zero Saloon and SUV EV concepts? I don't know. I think Prelude may come after. I don't think they have to worry about stepping on toes or anything there. I think, it's probably gonna. I'm guessing that we'll see final full production Prelude in LA. That would make sense to me. Again, but logic fails with Honda. So, but as far as the Zero Saloon and SUV, I believe the SUV is coming first, if I remember correctly, and I thought that was coming towards the end of this year, unless I'm getting that confused with the new Acura RSX blob of an SUV. But I thought the SUV Zero was coming by the end of this year. But yeah, I'm not sure when we're getting updates on any of that stuff. Again, there's probably not a whole lot of a rush with the EVs because, again, they're going to be launching them into an era where there's no tax credit. And maybe they wouldn't have qualified anyway. I don't know how expensive they plan to make those, but I'm thinking they'll probably be Prologue pricing, which means it's going to be harder to sell than Prologue without having that credit. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for all that stuff. I think, they're all going to be fun in their own ways. And Immutable Dew says Chevy 2.0T is a really reliable engine. I think they had piston issues early on. Yeah, I don't know much about the 2.0T. I do know the 1.6 that I had in the Malibu that I had at this point. I think it was probably almost 10 years ago as a press car. That thing wasn't an impressive motor, but the 2.0T seems to be a lot better for sure. I'm trying to remember because I think I think it's the same motor that's also used in the Cadillacs, like the CT5 for the base one, CT4. And I think the only issue with that motor, I could be wrong, you probably know more about this than I do, but it seems like direct injection issues still plague those engines. And once you get to higher mileage, they get a little gunked up and you got to kind of, I don't know if they do walnut blasting on them or what they do to kind of clean the valves and stuff. But I think that's the only thing is it's only direct injection and that can be problematic. So I don't know personally if I'd keep a 2.0T Chevy or any turbocharged Chevy with only direct injection for a super long period of time. But again, I don't know enough about them to say for sure. And Darnell says, Facebook keeps showing me IS200s with the beams engine. I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as the beams. I know the IS200, that was that the one did that run was a turbo 4? I just can't remember which one it was. But yeah, it's funny how they really try to go low with the IS there for a little bit and then just kind of gave up on it, I think, and I think 250 is the lowest you can go right now, right? I can't remember, but yeah, IS is a great car. I think it's very underrated these days. And Immutable Dew says, you're talking about the Suzuki Cappuccino. That was another K car as well from back then. And that'd be another cool one to bring over for sure. And I did actually an article for Carbuzz about this, about the K cars. Some of these less desirable K cars, they are dirt cheap. And for someone like, I know Danny's looking for like a low price car. If you want something real quarky, I know you're looking for some of these big American sedans, which that's a lot of fun in its own way. But if you appreciate off the wall stuff, Danny, I can't remember. I think the title of my article on Carbuzz was, I think like, here's 10 more K cars you should import or something like that on Carbuzz, and you search my name. Hopefully it'll come up. But there's a bunch of like just little oddball, little K car, like hatchback, 2 doors, hatchback, 4 doors, that like you can bring them over, including import fees and everything. I mean, again, they're right-hand drive, but we're talking pretty low mileage stuff because there's not a whole lot of high mileage stuff in Japan because it's not a large amount of mileage to traverse there, so you can get stuff with like 60 to 70,000 miles, little fun K cars, like the sportier versions. Like there's a Subaru Plio RS. I mean, you can pick up some of these things for like $5,000 to $6,000 all in, like imported, at least to a port like Baltimore or wherever. And then maybe you have to pay to ship it from there or do a road trip. I highly recommend doing a road trip. Rent a car for $100 a day or whatever. Drive to the port, pick up the car, road trip at home would be fantastic. Save yourself $1,000 to ship or whatever. But, there's some really cheap K cars. Obviously, they're very tiny. Safety is probably questionable. It's going to be hard to get parts too for some of those, probably. But if you're looking for something really quirky that's super cheap, I mean, Suzuki Cappuccino is another one. You can get some of those. They've kind of appreciated a little bit because people find them more desirable, but the lesser desirable K cars are actually, I think, really good values because again, they probably are going to run for another 10 plus years, even being cars from the late 90s, early 2000s. There's a lot of life left in them, and it could be really fun for someone that wants something out of the ordinary. And Danny says, I wish Chevy would bring back the Cavalier. It would be in competition with the Corolla and the Civic still. Just maybe a thought because it would keep Chevy in the sedan market with something cool. Yeah, I never knew why they got rid of Cruze. Chevy Cruze was great. I reviewed that they had a manual version with a hatchback. They even I think they did a diesel at one point. I mean, they did a really good job with Cruze. So you can, again, go watch that from a long time ago if you want to hear me talk about how impressed I was with it. But I think that was the first to have Apple CarPlay. It had a good amount of space, fine power. I mean, like it was good by all objective metrics. It was a good car. Probably depreciated faster, and it was living, with the phantom of Cobalt and its issues and ignition key recalls and the phantom of Cavalier, which I think did actually have a good opinion from some people, but I know a lot of people also that didn't like Cavalier. So I mean I think between Cavalier and Cobalt, Cruze just kind of had a bad legacy to work off of a little bit. But Cruze I thought was great. I don't know why it ever stopped production. That still could be in production today with the current space and all that. And I think it'd be still, totally acceptable, especially if they brought it in at a cheap price. But yeah, I don't get it at all. And Cavalier would be fun to bring back too, just for the namesake there. I think Cobalt's safely in the past and staying there. But even bringing back Cruze, I think could be fun. But I mean, there's a variety of other names, of course, they could pull from too. But yeah, it's a shame. I really don't understand why there's no interest to compete in sedans anymore. And Danny says he'd love to see a Z24 version. And we are at the 1 hour mark, so we'll end it here. I'll just do the last few questions and wrap up. But Vishal says, I love the Accord. That would have been my choice if I had a bigger budget for a car. Love the touring. Topher Drives took one on a 600-mile road trip and enjoyed it. Yeah, Accord is great. And as I've said in the past, I think it's the softest one of the bunch, which is good because it means like if you are doing a ton of miles, I think Accord is probably the one I would pick as well to actually be in all the time. Sonata is actually a close second on plushness these days, but I think Accord is I think that's the one. I love the way they do the hybrid powertrain and the Accord and everything too. Camry's still great. K5's great too. But I think Accord is still probably my favorite. And Eric says the CT4 and CT5 have the 2.7 liter turbo. They do for the V. Well, so CT4V has 2.7. CT5. Unless they changed something recently, CT5 has always been 2.0T and then 3.0 twin turbo. And then you go up, twin turbo for the with the V6 there for the V version. And then, of course, obviously the higher ones. But I believe 2.7 is only in CT4V. And it's a great motor in that, though. Again, I did a CT4V review as well. If you're curious how that motor feels in that car, it's great. Vishal says the IS300 is the lowest one these days. All right, well, thank you for the info. Yeah, I guess the 250 phased out too at some point there. And Darnell says the IS200 are the JDM ones that are imported. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, that'd be fun. Eric says, yeah, okay. You're one step ahead of me. Sorry, I didn't see the follow-up comment there. And Jordan says, last one, did you ever watch the promo teaser about the Mach-E? They drove a Mustang into a creepy auto shop that was struck by lightning. Oh, yeah, I think I remember, the initial, if you're talking about the initial promo video for Mach-E that came out back in, I think 2020. I think I remember that. That was the one that, it had... I'm blanking on the famous actor's name, but it had the one famous actor, and it was I remember the commercial, and it was questionable at the time, and but anyway, Immutable Do says 2.0T, it was Malibu, Equinox, Regal, Camaro, and Caddy. And Darnell says the JDM IS200 98 plus with the Beams engine is the 210 horsepower, 7,600 RPM red line, and naturally aspirated high compression for the time. That would be fun. That sounds like a good combo. Yeah, honestly, I guess I never even knew about that version. Everyone always obviously focuses on the IS300 from back in the day, but that sounds like a good time. And Immutable Do also says Cruise had the 2.0 diesel in the first gen and the 1.6 diesel in the second gen, I think built in Belgium. That's fun. So many of those fun collaborations and partnerships and stuff that GM wasn't afraid of doing there. And Greg says the K4 is so nice in this class. Yeah, K4 is fantastic. I loved it when I had it for a week not too long ago. They really did a good job on the space on K4. I think that's going to be a huge sales hit for Kia, and just because people want space but they don't want to spend a bunch of money, I think K4 is a really nice kind of compromise there. And Falcon says the Slate truck might not make it now that it seems the big beautiful bill will pass. Well, it's one of those things where with the tax credit going away, everything's going to get more expensive. It's just like the tariffs where it makes things harder, but if there's tariffs on everything, including like Maverick, then, Maverick gets more expensive still. And then therefore you're going to have, a place for Slate. It might not be, again, the advertised initial price, but it's going to still be, whatever the margin was underneath Maverick before, you'll still retain hopefully most of that same margin there. But that'd be a shame. I haven't heard if there is talk about Slate just going away as a result of that credit going away. If that bill passes the way it does, I know we're over time here, so I'll try and limit my rants. But we're going to see Rivian's going to have a really hard time, and Tesla could actually go back into being a money-losing company every quarter, because I believe this past quarter Tesla was only profitable because of the CAFE credits, and there's no more CAFE credits under this bill. So that means none of the EV only brands can sell their credits anymore. And that was, again, half of Tesla's business. And Rivian made a bunch of money doing that as well. And so if, Tesla's already struggling, if their sales are bad and they can't sell CAFE credits anymore, that's, by the way, why Elon's losing his mind. I think him being upset about the Doge stuff might have some, that might also be part of what's triggering him, understandably so, based on everything that he lost as a result of doing that. But it's going to be super bad for Tesla, and therefore his net worth as a result if the CAFE credits go away, as well as all the other government subsidies and other government contracts and stuff that he gets that are all at threat here. It's going to be real bad. So you could see not only Slate go away, you could see Rivian. I don't think Rivian's going to go away because they seem to be the darling of every legacy brand. Volkswagen is like everything they're doing is now going to be using Rivian everything. So I think Volkswagen will save Rivian if it really does come down to it, for Rivian. But Tesla, I don't know if they'll go away completely, but I think that Tesla could be in a real bad situation. If you thought the spring was bad, it might not look as bad on the appearances, but whenever you see the earnings reports, it's going to be a bloodbath. So if this bill passes, not financial advice, but I think puts on Tesla would probably be a safe bet leading up to the next earnings call, because there is no way. It might not happen immediately, but once these credits phase out, which I don't know when that's happening, but the next quarter following that, you're going to have Tesla hurting badly financially. Let me see. And so Decepticon, thanks for stopping by, and sorry joining here right at the end, but definitely watch this after the fact if you want to see all the stuff we talked about here tonight. And Michelle says, yeah, have a good rest of the week and 4th, everyone. And Greg says Tesla PE is so high it has 90% risk to it. It's it'll be interesting to see. I think Tesla's in for a rocky road here, to say the least. And Jordan says, thanks, Matt. Keep the midweek lives. I definitely plan to keep these. Yeah, it's always so much fun. And I hope you guys also have enjoyed this one here. Have a great 4th, and stay tuned. I will be posting some other videos here, 2 more reviews, hopefully before the end of the week here, as well as I'll see you on Sunday for the next 2-hour live stream. And so stay tuned for that. And anyway, thank you all so much once again for all your support and for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.